Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
And let's take a peek. Okay, it seems okay. Let's take another peek because I don't trust these guys. Don't trust technology.
No, not at all, especially with us. We got so much interference.
So again, as those of you that are very familiar with the channel know that we don't take the Bible as to be inerrant by any means, but there are some things in there that are hinting at, really interesting thoughts and occurrences that perhaps have come, and some that will come, and some that come repetitively in cycles.
Mm-hmm. It's very useful. It can help you through a lot of things. There are good nuggets of information, but that's kind of how I see it. I look for those golden nuggets of information, not just in the Bible, but across the board in all different kinds of religions and understandings and belief systems. I just love finding the golden nuggets.
Absolutely. So 1 Corinthians 15:51, we'll start at 50. Now I declare to you, brothers, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, nor does the perishable inherit the imperishable. Listen, I will tell you a mystery. We will not all sleep, but we will all be changed. Yeah, so, that's a famous verse that's always been one of the ones that was most curious to me, anyway, personally. And, now I feel that it completely is talking about what happens when we have that solar flash. Mm-hmm. Now, not just that, because, again, we don't necessarily as an individual have to wait until the sun generates the final transformation. And again, the sun is a relay from source. The individual can always ascend at any time.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of things we can do to work on ourselves between now and then. It's something that we should be making a regular practice of, because our energy body is very powerful. It bumps into everything around you. You can think of it as sound, and the sound reverberates off of different things, and that creates different responses from people. So when we have light and sound put together, we make form.
Absolutely, and it's all about different frequencies. Mm-hmm. So, as things slow down, like if we took steam, we cooled it down, it's going to eventually become water, and eventually it'll become ice. It's just about how fast things are vibrating. If we're talking about increasing your vibration, increasing your frequency, then, something's going to happen to your body, and it's not going to be the same as it was before.
Mm-hmm. And we have the solid, liquid, gas, and let's not forget plasma. That's what we're made of. We are a very dense form of plasma, constantly changing, constantly moving, constantly repairing wherever we can. So we have to look at things in the sense that nothing is permanent. Everything is always changing all the time.
Always changing. And I see this one right below it, and boy, does it catch my eye. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and I have absolute faith so as to move mountains, but I have not love, I am nothing. It's all centered around our being. And, again, the gifts of prophecy, like Cindy was mentioning, and I'll touch on it briefly. The Siddhis, the superpowers of a yogi.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that I wanted to go in a lot deeper with, because there's so many details. I mean, we can just talk about the Siddhis, but I really wanted people to understand them, and how do you get there, and at what point in life do you receive them, stuff like that. But, we'll give you an introduction.
And we've talked about this in the past. So there's many things that are superpowers, quote unquote, that yogis can achieve in the Kali Yuga with a lot of work. Now, when we get out of the Kali Yuga, anybody will basically have a lot of these abilities. And each one of us is unique. We have unique energy signature to us. Every single one of us, going all the way up to archetypes. And there are archetypal forces from which everything is flowing. You have basically source, and you know what? We bought a whiteboard, and Cindy is going to do some drawing for you guys. She's kind of cringing, looking her eyes, rolling her eyes, but she wanted this. She's been saying this for over a year, I know. Yeah. And we did get a big whiteboard, and we're going to pull it out of its package, and we're going to give you guys some diagrams to help us explain without using other people's sources, which we don't necessarily always agree with 100%. Actually, we never agree with 100%. But that's also because we're each unique beings coming from a different archetype in so many ways. We're made up of different archetypal forces. And I want to go a lot more into that. But some of the superpowers of yogis, which will now start to become available to everybody, just because we're shedding the Kali Yuga, the heaviest, densest part of our existence as we flow through time and space. The ability to read minds without the senses, telepathy. Power to know events in the future, clairvoyance. Ability to move objects by mental effort alone, psychokinesis. Ability to float in the air, levitation. Ability to make the body invisible. Ability to move outside of one's physical body at will. Power to become very large or very small. Ability to know one's previous incarnations, and so on.
Mm-hmm. And, a lot of people ask, well, how do I know what I can do? And when do I find these things out? When are they going to happen to me? And honestly, what you need to do is open your mind to the possibilities. And you've got your foot in the door right there.
You could think of the third density that we have been exploring as being almost trapped into a block of ice. You have to struggle, you have to push and pull just to break a little bit away so you can move. Well, now we're going to be going into more like flowing water, where it's just going to be a matter of a little practice, a little intention, and then you can manifest things so much quicker than ever before.
Right. And I feel in many ways we already are that flowing water where when it comes to energy, we don't know where one ends and the next begins because our energy is blending with everything around us.
And the guides have shared with us that these powers are coming online in people. And some people, they're already developing. And in other people, it'll take a little bit longer. But in general, again, if the population avoids doing certain things out there that are designed, really, this is what they're designed to do, is to stop this. Because if you have people that are telepathic, clairvoyant, that have the ability to do these amazing things, you have people that are uncontrollable. And for one, they're going to see right through all the lies and the illusions. And if you hear any snoring, that's Rama, by the way. Humanity's just not going to be able to be controlled, and it's not going to buy what's being sold by the powers that be anymore. It's just that simple. When we look at the aura and we see the different colors and different layers, well, we have machinery that can see that now, although many people can see that. I can always see the etheric template around people. It's kind of like a glowing white usually. Then you just let your eyes kind of relax a little bit deeper, kind of look past the person, and you'll start to, perhaps you will, start to see some different colors and shades come through. Everybody is different. One thing I did want to mention, we did yesterday again, which is something I want to get in the habit of doing regular, is making a bunch of different herbal teas out in the sunlight. Because the sun right now, and again, they've sprayed the sky, so it's got that silvery blue hue to it, where it was, and it would have been crystal clear blue. As they're trying to reflect back out into space, the information given to us by God with the big G, source, that's intended to hit our skin, hit our body, and basically wake up our DNA, waking up all these abilities to even the playing field and to help us to ascend. But charging the water, with the light. And, we made some elderberry tea out there and some hibiscus tea and some that is more for like sleepy time stuff. But charging and letting the water charged, as you see this little informed water, you could also send your own intention to it. Water's a sponge for information.
It really is. And if you get into any of the work by Dr. Emoto, and I highly recommend you look at his information, he was able to get water and put words like love on the water, flash freeze it, and it would turn into the most beautiful, perfect crystal. And then he did the opposite. He would get the same water, he would put the words on it, I hate you, and he would flash freeze it, and lo and behold, it looked like exactly like a picture of a man with a gun pointed at another man. So it was so interesting, and that's probably one of the handful of things that I read that really helped me wake up and really be conscious of what I'm thinking, and what I'm understanding, because your body is made up of all of this water. So this is the form it's going to take of those thought forms.
Absolutely. And that's just the physical body we're talking about right here. As you see the chakras superimposed on her over on the left there. In reality, we are way bigger than our physical body because we have many layers to our energy body. And they do correlate to different chakras and different dimensions, different densities. When we look at the basic shape of a human energy body, it's a torus. And we notice this as above, so below. Same thing with the earth. Because again, the earth is a living being, and we are all cells in the earth. And the Earth's energy field is a torus as well. And in fact, it's the same thing with the universe. This is the as above, so below. This is the way the programming of the matrix works. And this goes on even in different densities. This little diagram here is showing 15-dimensional human anatomy. All the different layers. And in fact, it might go way, way beyond that. We have no idea of how far out each individual extends, because again, each individual is just a drop of water in the ocean of consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Right. And a lot of people see a lot of different things around the energy body. Some people might see it like this. I see it like this, and I happen to see those what are those shapes?
Like sacred geometry.
Yes, sacred geometry around people and coming out of certain areas on their body, which might tell me if that area of the body needs work. So it's all very, very different. So you got to do a lot by feel and understanding your feelings so you can translate this stuff to other people so they understand it.
Yeah, seeing the different patterns. Cindy, I'll always ask her when I'm doing different positions in standing meditation, what do you see now? And she'll see different shapes will be accented or brought into being, and she'll see the Merkaba. It's all part of the patterns of the universe. This is, obviously the universe is put together in a very, very scientific manner that is not like the science we get here on Earth, where it's all about bias and trying to, control the narrative. But as above, so below. And it's fascinating to uncover these things and recognize that, we are all part of something much bigger. And for one, when the physical body is shed, then our consciousness is no longer residing in the physical body, but it's still there. It's in those other layers. And in fact, it might be more free to move around. Cindy was getting that Zeke was just starting to learn how to fly now, because he doesn't have to actually walk anymore. He could just fly.
Right. It was really interesting to watch him progress from the time that the door opened for him to go and move into a different energy pattern. And then after a while, I could see him come back. And one of the things, he kept sniffing. So his senses actually changed. And I'm not sure if maybe he couldn't smell or if everything smelled different, but he kept sniffing. And then also one thing he would do is he was floating up. He was learning how to float up and go in circles. It was really interesting because I've never got to witness and observe a being go from leaving this 3D realm into other realms. So I've been watching that.
Well, we live very close to a cemetery and also not far from a hospital. So, we have a lot of discarnates that are always showing up. And so, one night this guy Butch came in, and it was hilarious. And I've shared this story before because all of a sudden, Cindy's sound asleep, and then all of a sudden I hear her say something like, "Come on, guys, let's go." Yeah. And she could see what's happening because it's almost like they switched places. She was Butch, basically, from his point of view, and she's seeing herself as an orb. And then he's kind of like realizing, I'm in a body, and I'm a woman. What the heck? Mm-hmm. And he was freaking out. He's like, hey, how did I get in here? What's going on? And Butch had shared that what he does is when people are recently buried in the cemetery, they tend to come up and they are still holding their physical form like a replica of the body. And often they just hang around the body. They're a little bit confused. It could happen. So he lets them know that, hey, you don't have to hold on to that form of a body. You could just basically appear as an orb of light. So you could kind of let that go, and you could go and do whatever you want. You could go fly anywhere. And, eventually you could go and do what's normally done, which is go through that process of a life review and then working on planning the next life. But many times people they're in the in-between for a while. And we've seen that. We've encountered people that have been in the in-between for, over 100 years, 150 years. And many of them do come back to us just to, I guess kind of almost let us know that they're doing okay in some ways. We've seen some little girls like Annabelle from Nevada. We picked up Annabelle. She's doing really well. When she first appeared, she almost looked a little ghoulish. But now she's vibrant and happy. And she ended up making a friend in New Mexico when we were in New Mexico. Little Feather, and they just play about on the astral all the time.
Right. And it's real interesting on the astral how people have different jobs, because Butch, that's his actual job. That's what he does, is he helps people find their way out of the cemetery and start learning about what's happened. So yeah, for anybody who's wondering, is there jobs, when we cross over? Yes, there absolutely is. But there are more of these jobs, something that you want to do, something you have a passion of doing, and something that you will do very well and you'll love. And eventually, I'm hoping this planet on the 3D realm will get that way too, where everybody does only what they love. I mean, could you imagine what a beautiful place this would be if people were full of passion and what they're good at, and that's all they did? Wow.
Absolutely. When my mom had passed on, when she first showed up, she was in her usual nightgown that she would be, in all the time. And I remember calling her, and she'd say some days, "Oh, I didn't even get dressed today," But her hip was so bad over the years, she ended up passing out at 90. She was almost 91. And her hip got so bad, and this is a woman that would walk miles even at 80 years old. When we had her 80th birthday party, she was jitterbugging and kicking over her head. But then her hip got so bad just in the last few years that she couldn't get around like she used to. So then Cindy saw her just like running around and bouncing around and so happy to be able to move freely again.
Right. I mean, her walk was so fast paced. I'd never seen anybody walk that fast before, but she was, she was still in her nightgown though. She didn't know, okay, I could put on something different. So all of this stuff is very fascinating. It's very curious. And yeah, I mean, when we develop these abilities as we heal, because that's a huge component of this is our own healing, because as we change, our hormones change, and then we might develop certain abilities, but we want to be in a good place when we develop these abilities, because we don't want to be bouncing off the walls or going crazy and stuff like that. We want to be solid and firm, and that's why these yogis took so much time in doing what they do to develop these siddhis. Is it's important to be complete.
Absolutely. When you're dedicating hours a day to deep meditation, pranayama, breath work. Obviously, most people nowadays don't have that time. They don't. And this is part of why the system is the way it is. It makes sure you don't have the time to develop your abilities, to see past what's right in front of your face. This is all part of the system. As we see, this is Barbara Brennan's model of the first 7 layers of the human energy field. And there are many, many more to that. And again, it depends on the person's individual ability to see what you can see. What I liked about this is just showing how we are not exactly what we think we are. And we're actually, well, for one, we're interconnected with all sorts of other consciousnesses. And in a way, we're already collectives. And we just don't realize that we are a collective of consciousnesses. As you see, you have the incarnate identity, then the soul identity, then the oversoul identity, and then what they're labeling as the avatar identity and the rishi identity. We have gotten that, again, this particular universe was created by a very beautiful, benevolent being. This universe. There's other universes out there. As we know, we're in a multiverse. There's universe after universe. And there are other beings that create other universes which will operate in slightly different manners depending on the way it was programmed, so to speak, by the programmer. And, in this case, this particular universe operates as it does, but it's not necessarily going to operate exactly the same way in other universes. It all depends on that being. And that being that created this universe, well, a portion of that being's in all of us. And then source, the ultimate source, which is even beyond that being, is in all of us as well.
Right. It is good to have these understandings so you can see how multidimensional you really are and how important our energies are to be balanced and stable, because it'll make how your life goes. It'll make you more congruent with everything around you when you're in a nice neutral mood all the time.
So, according to human design, and we're not really going to go into this too large, I just go into it a little bit because Cindy and I are a little bit acquainted with it, mostly through our dear friend Annalita, who's very, very special to us. And there's 4 different types of, well, actually even more than that, really, of beings. There's generators, which are, I think, about 60, 65, 70% of the population are generators. They attract and they respond. There's projectors, which, if I remember right, is about 15 to 20% of the population. And they absorb and focus. And then you have manifestors, which impact and repel. And then you have reflectors, which reflects. And reflectors and manifestors are much more rare. And you could have combinations, like a manifesting generator, for instance. And so with Cindy, the way that we are set up, it makes it perfect for us to work together because I'm a projector and she's a manifesting generator. So we tend to balance each other out. But again, we all have our natural inclinations, and there's nothing wrong with our natural inclinations. These are just things that make us unique.
And it helps us understand the world we live in. So it's always good to read into these things, understand them at a much deeper level, because self-realization is really the most important thing you can do while you're here on the 3D. That's my opinion. I have found it to be very helpful for myself and my journey.
When energy is disrupted in an emotional way, it'll eventually cause disease in the physical body. Because what happens on the higher densities will seep down into the lower. And so when you see like the disruption labeled aura over on the right, that's what happens when we walk by certain towers. That's what happens when we get certain things. Ouch, that hurt just a little bit. All these things are disrupting our energy. The cell phones are, just everything that's giving off an energetic pattern in this world that's not natural, as well as emotions. You get into an argument, you have an accident, something happens, you see bad news on the TV. All this could interrupt our energy patterns, cause these disruptions, which eventually, if they're left unchecked, they will manifest as disease on the 3rd density. What we want to look like is that flowing on the left. So it's so important. Can't understate how important it is to take care of your mental and emotional health. And again, through things like yoga, Qigong, mantras. When we are doing mantras, specifically mantras, perhaps like, let's just take a mantra to Ganesh or Lakshmi, for instance. These beings are beyond the fourth density. So they're up at a much higher density. When we send them energy, they truly are benevolent. They take it, amplify it, and send it back to us. And they've told us so. And this is why it works. Unfortunately, if we're sending energy to a being that's really residing on the lower fourth density, and some of these Anunnaki beings that have made themselves out to be source when they're not, again, what you get back might not be so nice. So, it's learning how to discern between the energies. Because I know a lot of people will say, how do you know when you discern? Well, it's just like looking at a color. It's just obvious, like I'm looking at Cindy's shirt, and I would say it's peach, so it's peach to me, and it's just obvious. It's not black. No, it's not green, because you could sense when your senses are developed, again, when these Siddhis, these superpowers are developed, and they're not really superpowers when you're outside the Kali Yuga. They're just normal. There's nothing hidden. Everything's revealed. And again, that's why this is the apocalypse, the great unveiling, the great revealing.
Right. And again, more knowledge is more power. And one thing that's really important when you're looking at the energy body and you're working with these other beings is you're allowing them, when you do their mantras, you are allowing them, giving them permission to work in your life, to make changes in your life. And these beautiful, benevolent beings work in many different ways. So after you open these doors and create these pathways, then you have to step back and trust a little bit that whatever is happening around you is for your greatest good, or it's whatever you are asking for.
Absolutely. And here we're looking at the rainbow body. This photo was taken in 2011 for rainbow body of Chogyur Lingpa Rinpoche. And many tens of thousands of documented cases of Tibetan monks having achieved a rainbow body. Sometimes, as you can see here, they just kind of go into a meditative state and their body just shrinks away. But yet, if you will feel a very slight pulse. They're not dead yet. They just are withdrawing their consciousness out of the physical body, and they're staying on the higher planes of existence. And they're ascending. And again, we're mostly on a 3D, 4D loop. But there have been tens of thousands of cases of these monks achieving the rainbow body and ascending. And again, we got that Yeshua, the real Yeshua, ascended. And he did. Just think about the distortion. If his purpose was to come and teach us Christ consciousness, how to ascend through the heart chakra into a fifth density life and fifth density living, then the power structure that be turns it into another blood sacrifice. And they also make him unique so that we can't do it. Yes, he was unique in many ways. We all are unique. But we can do it. I mean, he also said, how you marvel, greater things you will do. So right there. And they call him the Son of God when every one of us is sons and daughters of God. I and the Father are one. That's recognizing that Source is within you. The creator of this universe is within you. It's just obvious. So if he came to show how to ascend and they turn it into a blood sacrifice, make him unique, get you praying to him instead of actually doing work on yourself, go back to that quote from Corinthians, if I don't have love, then what good is any of it? And love is the key. Love and compassion is the key to the heart chakra. So we've had people making comments like, I remember that one comment, you could keep mantraing them forever. It's not going to, kill them or what have you. You got to get rid of the controllers, but it's about yourself. Do you want to stay in the 3D, 4D loop? Do you want to create the karmic conditions where you're going to come back into the same situation in your next lifetime when you realize that you don't die, your consciousness doesn't stop, but your consciousness can go into loop after loop after loop, lifetime after lifetime of lifetime, with the same challenges you're facing right now? Don't you want to escape those challenges and go to a place where it's just all play and fun and exploration?
And we have the opportunity to do that. And we're the ones who are able and will do the work too. They're not going to take that from us. They're not going to take our glory from us. We actually take the steps. We do the legwork. We do the devotion, but we have to put in the time. And ultimately, the time is circling. It's always circling back to you.
Absolutely. And, here you see the handprints, which this is only a small amount of this particular monk's body remained, about 5 centimeters. That's tiny. Mm-hmm. That's absolutely tiny. But this is documented, and it could go on down and see different cases. They talk about all different cases throughout time of monks, even in the modern day, that have achieved the rainbow body and have ascended. The individual can ascend, yet the true Yeshua ascended. Mm-hmm. And he's still there. And so once we get out of this yuga, anybody could have a conversation with him at any time, because we're all connected in this ocean of consciousness. Cindy right now is operating on a higher density than most people, so she's able to channel, and we could have direct conversations with just about anybody. We've tried to reach out to a bunch of different beings, and every time we've tried, we've gotten through.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right, and I think it's really important to have these conversations with these beings, because your energy matters. When you're putting it out there, they're definitely receiving it.
So, if violence is the only way, then when we see blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth, Matthew 5:5, how do you explain that? Mm-hmm. If you believe in the Bible and take it literally, how do you explain that? Because the meek aren't going to go take up arms. Mm-mm. They're not going to fire when fired upon. They're going to avoid the conflict. They're going to try to escape the conflict.
Right, they're going to create a better way, and I don't know about the word meek. To me, that's like a meek little mouse who's going to cower from anything. But no, we don't cower from things. We find another way to get things done that's going to benefit a whole lot more people. It's going to behoove many, many people to create and to evolve in a different manner besides the war that they are doing now.
Well, meek is translated as quiet, gentle. It could also be submissive. Now, again, we're not going to be submissive when it comes to allowing ourselves to have our souls tarnished. Mm-hmm. And when we see what happens in war, there's battlefields you could go to today, and there's still soldiers, like in Civil War battles, Battle of Gettysburg. You go to Gettysburg today, you still see soldiers wandering around. They don't even know what happened yet. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. They're still traumatized, and they're stuck in between incarnations.
And you can feel them too. You can feel their traumas. They're still wandering around with them.
Absolutely. So we hope this helps, put some ideas into some minds. We want to thank all our Patreons, also those that are supporting us on Ko-Fi. Check out Medicinal Foods, link on top of every video. Use coupon code EEA and get a discount. It also supports the channel. Lots of stuff here that can help you boost your immune system, detox. This is stuff we have to do every day with all the toxins around us. As always, guys, may you be blessed with love, light, and peace in your heart through the toughest of times. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.